Welcome, everyone. This is an unusual forum for us to be delivering in, but it's at the request of our host and speaker. So it will be interesting to see how we manage this. I'm Sharon Constanson. I think most of you know who I am, and it's wonderful to see so many of the members of the chamber. At the moment, we are in the early moments of a new series that we're going to be running on AI, new technologies, generative AI, how it's all going to impact creativity, how it's going to impact our jobs, what kind of work it's going to do, how it's going to evolve. And we know already that it's starting to understand cultures and language differences. And there are times I find it absolutely brilliant, and there are other times I think, oh, what rubbish. So what we're going to be learning over the next 12 months as a world is how that is going to refine itself, how it's going to improve, and therefore the change that we're going to go through in 12 months is going to be shock and awe. And we're all going to get there onto the platform, and a lot of us are going to leapfrog onto that platform by not wanting to be right there in the beginning and sort of saying, okay, let me just watch this one. All of that is okay, provided we accept that our lives are going to be changed by this environment, like the internet changed our lives, like the pandemic changed our lives. These are going to be new ways of working that are coming at us. And it's up to us now to make sure that we are ready for it mentally, emotionally, work-wise, technology-wise, in all those aspects, so that we can actually make the most of it for ourselves and the companies we work for, particularly if it's our own company. So we've got speaking with us today a company who works for a much bigger company than probably many of us work for. And you can know where they are seated on your keyboard. Is that the one that's got the little four squares? Those little four squares, the windows into the world of Microsoft. That is who George Honiball works for. He's a member of the chamber, and we are bringing this AI series to you, and he will take us through 8 to 12 months of the evolution of AI, generative AI, and whatever else the next one's going to get called in 5 minutes' time. So we are going to have a lot of fun in these sessions. And George, from Microsoft, please tell us how our lives are about to really change.
Great, Sharon. Depending on where you are in the world, good morning or good afternoon or good evening. Sharon, thanks for the introduction. My name is George Honiball. I work for a little company that makes windows. I've been working with Microsoft for 4.5 years now, living in the UK. So I was based in South Africa for most of my professional career. I was the HR director of Incredible Connection for a few years. I've also worked for consulting companies like Deloitte in Woodmead, and then also KPMG in the Docklands here in the UK, based in London. So I look after big, what we call our S500 customers, our strategic accounts. I can mention some of them by name, but for example, the likes of the Coca-Cola Group, Vodafone in the UK, who own Vodacom in South Africa, also the Lego Group, Carlsberg, the beer company, also Maersk, the international transport company, and another company that's been in the news a lot lately, Novo Nordisk, who have their medication for weight loss and for dealing with diabetes. So they sort of really printing money at the moment. So those are the likes of the companies that I'm supporting here from the UK. So as Sharon mentioned, whether you like AI or not, it is not going away. So I think that what we were trying to discuss and agree with the chamber is that we need to be educated about how to use AI properly. I think as Sharon mentioned a little bit earlier, sometimes it will not give you the results that you want. And like with any computer, a famous person said, computers do what you want them, what you tell them to, not what you want them to. So often there is miscommunication, and if the computer is not giving you what you want, often it's because you're not asking it the right thing or asking it in the right way as well. And that's part of the process. We're going to get to prompt engineering in a few minutes and what that's all about. But just as Sharon mentioned earlier as well, this is a 4-part course. So we are still in session 1 today. We're going to be talking about an introduction to generative AI, talking about Chat GPT, and I'm going to give you a live demonstration of some of the functionality with 365 Copilot. Because I work for Microsoft, obviously we've got the latest version available to us as employees, and that's why we're hosting this session in Teams today, so that I can give you a live demonstration of what we can do with Copilot in Teams. Then session 2, we're going to be talking about leveraging generative AI for business innovation. That's on Friday, the 19th of July. On the 25th of October, we're going to be looking at creative applications of generative AI. And this has caused a lot of stirs. It's caused a lot of strikes. It's caused people saying that generative AI is going to kill creativity. It's going to kill the performing arts. So that's something that we can look at as well and see how you can use AI to build on your intelligence. And then finally, in November, we're going to be talking about the future of work with AI assistants and what is coming. I mean, I don't know if you saw yesterday, but somebody interviewed Elon Musk, and he said that basically we can choose in the future if we want to work or not, because AI is going to be doing most of the work for us. So we can choose, we can opt in or opt out of work if we want to, which seems sort of really counterintuitive and impossible, but that is what he sort of is thinking is going to happen. So introduction to generative AI concepts and applications. Then I'm going to be sort of showing you a few tips and tricks on how to use Chat GPT correctly. So Chat GPT is freely available to everybody. It is obviously causing a huge stir because other companies like Google and Apple also have come out with generative AI solutions, but they have been very buggy and they've had to stop some of them. But Chat GPT, which was built by OpenAI, has kind of really stuck in the market and is now sort of evolving and improving exponentially very quickly. So if you've not used it in the past, I do encourage you to open it up and go in, and I can show you very quickly how to do that as well. Then, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be having a look at the M365 Copilot, Teams, Word, and Chat, and give you a live demonstration and that type of thing. So the very basics of prompt engineering we'll cover as well. And I'm actually going to use ChatGPT to sort of teach us a little bit about it. So just to, in terms of setting the scene, what we're going to be doing is we will cover both free and premium features. And I will point out to you, I think for those of you that do not want to buy licenses and invest heavily in the technology, there are wonderful free applications out there. I mean, ChatGPT has got no limit in terms of how much you can use it on a daily basis. Some of these generative AI applications, you do have to pay for a subscription if you want to use the more advanced features, but I will point that out to you as well. Obviously, for M365, some of the applications are only available on corporate licenses, but I can sort of discuss that with you as we use them. So just a quick introduction to generative AI. We call it AI, which obviously is short for artificial intelligence. We're going to see just now, artificial intelligence is not a great definition of what this is about, but basically what AI, it simulates human intelligence in the machine. So it is simulating human thought, how people learn, and being able to perform some tasks that require human cognition. So the computer is not wise. The computer is not clever. It is literally replicating humans. Almost if you think of building a robot that is very human-like. So you'll see a lot of the robots that are being built actually are built like humans, because a lot of the environments that we operate in are built for humans. So doors are a certain size, windows are at a certain height. So a lot of robots have been built that way. The element of generative also is the ability for AI to create new original content or data. Now, even though we call it original content, we do have something, and you'll see in the next bullet point, training data. So training data is what is causing a lot of these strikes, where people are saying that a lot of these AI engines are being trained using data that they have created. So if an author publishes a book, and that book is uploaded into the brain or the memory of the AI engine, if you ask it to write a poem around that topic, it is going to use the content of that author. And that author is not credited. basically the AI engine is using the intelligence and the creativity of that person to create that content. So even though we say it's original content, it is using the intelligence or the brain or the mind of that author to do it. And that's what's causing a lot of conflict at the moment. In terms of training data as well, as I mentioned earlier, we as humans need to educate the system. And obviously some of these engines, for example, Chat GPT has been plugged into the internet. So it's gone back throughout the history of the internet to find information. And with that, we're going to come to some of the concerns a little bit later. Obviously, it inherits a lot of the biases, a lot of the misconceptions as well. So that is one of the limitations of AI. In terms of Chat GPT, and we're going to get to a live demonstration of Chat GPT shortly. So as I mentioned earlier, it was developed by a company called OpenAI. OpenAI and Microsoft are working very closely together at the moment to incorporate some of the technology into Microsoft's products as well. The GPT does mean something, so it's called Generative Pre-trained Transformer. And what that basically means is that because it's a generative AI engine, it has to be pre-trained. So obviously it's not learning all the time. It has been educated, and that means it allows the system or the interface to interact with humans in real time. And you will see a lot of people are very critical of the solution, because if you go into a Google search and you click the button, instantly the information appears. Whereas with the generative AI, it is literally building that response for you. It's unique. So it's not replicating what other people have requested. Every time you interact with the system, it's as if you're the first person to interact with it on that topic. So that is why it does take a little bit of time to respond to your question. It's going to the billions or trillions of rows of data to find a right way or a right response to respond to your prompt. And also, we'll get to it in a few minutes, we are using prompts in engaging with AI. We're not using keywords anymore. So obviously keyword searches are one way. That's a traditional way of using the internet to search for information, but now we're using prompts. And obviously, as you build a relationship with the ChatGPT about a different topic, it will remember the history of what you've asked, and it will keep building on that idea. So if you want to come up with a new idea or discuss a new topic, you need to start a new chat. But we're going to share that with you in a few minutes as well. So OpenAI, it feels like it's been around forever, but they only actually launched the first version of ChatGPT in 2018. It's obviously evolved a few times, and the latest version is ChatGPT. For those of you that are up to date with technology, they recently released ChatGPT 4.0, which came out, I think, last week. In the free version, we are still using ChatGPT 3.5, which is not the best, but it is a huge improvement on ChatGPT 2. So they are sort of really are there. And I think to pay for a subscription for ChatGPT 4, I think it was $10 a month, but I think they are going to be reducing it down to $5 if they haven't done it already. So it really is good value for money if it is something that you're going to be using a lot. In terms of what is the training data, so I do know that they use a lot of topics on the internet. They mentioned that they've used books as well, and then written material that's available on the internet. So it's not just the web-based content. It has reviewed some attachments and PDF documents and that type of thing as well. But obviously, because there's so many records, it's almost impossible to find out what it is. But remember, you can ask GPT what the reference is for some of the information, and it does give it to you. So that is something that you can do if you want to. The term artificial intelligence is misleading, as I mentioned earlier. So I said to ChatGPT, what is a better way to define artificial intelligence? And it came back and it said to me, if it could rewrite the textbook, it would call it machine intelligence or cognitive computing, because, as I mentioned earlier, the tool is emulating or replicating human cognitive processes. It also sort of is important to realize that the machine itself is not intelligent. and very controversially, it is not conscious. Okay, so it doesn't have any form of consciousness. It is not aware of aware of its surroundings as such. Now, obviously, it can replicate it. So some of the robots that are being designed, they've got touch sensors in their fingers, so they can replicate as if they can sort of touch things and feel things. But remember, it's being built by humans. So as such, it is not self-aware. And that is what, for example, some of the science fiction movies come up, is they say that at one stage computers are going to become so intelligent that they're going to become self-aware, and that's when they're going to try and take over the world and turn humans into paper clips, because we would be composed of iron. So some of it is really fun, some of it is very serious, so it really depends where you want to go. But the reality is we cannot deny that AI exists and that we need to embrace the technology. I saw Bill Gates in an interview when somebody asked him about what is your perception of people's negativity towards AI, and he said it's the same as with maths teachers. When calculators first came out, maths teachers said, oh, the world's going to fall apart now, nobody's going to be able to do calculations in their head anymore. Everybody's going to become dependent on calculators to live. I remember even our teachers said to us that calculators are terrible, that you need to still do things in your mind because you're not going to be carrying a calculator with you everywhere you go. That was before we had mobile phones, so you can see I'm very old. In terms of concerns about Chat GPT, and these are very real, so obviously privacy is an issue, because it can generate sensitive or inappropriate content. It can get very personal as well. Some people go and really test the boundaries and start sort of almost trying to ask inappropriate questions to Chat GPT to kind of see the boundaries of how far it's prepared to go. Also, in terms of bias, as I mentioned earlier, obviously the system is built on knowledge that is already out there. So if there are biases in that knowledge, it is going to happen. For example, Wikipedia, for those of you that use Wikipedia, from a gender perspective, do you know what the percentage content generated by women is compared to men in Wikipedia? I think the last count was 97% of the content on Wikipedia was generated by men. Even on topics related specifically to women, it is male authors that are writing about the topic. So you would expect sort of gender that's specifically related to females, it would be written by females, but Wikipedia is very, very male dominated. And obviously that would be reflected in the AI engine if it's using Wikipedia as the base. It's going to be very male heavy. And this is the bias that comes in. Also, in terms of misinformation, if you say that you're an expert on post-traumatic stress disorder and you write a book about it and you're not vetted, you're not verified at all, and you create a little chatbot that references what you think PTSD is all about, that's going to be misinformation, because people are going to go in trusting you, trusting your education and your experience of PTSD. They're going to use the chatbot that I create, and it might not necessarily be true. So you can build that misinformation in. And you can imagine people from a political persuasion, people from a religious persuasion, they can push their information through this system as if it is truth when it is actually not. So yes, misinformation is a problem. Also, in terms of the ethical use of AI, and it's something that we as Microsoft employees are being reminded about all the time, is that AI should be ethical. We do not want to use AI to be unethical. I know at the moment security is a huge issue. We're very concerned that the hackers out there are using AI to help them hack in a better and more advanced and sophisticated way. And we are definitely seeing that they are utilizing the technology for wrong. So this is not what we want to use AI for. But obviously it's down to individuals, and we can't control how people use these, but we can put safety measures in place to try and prevent people from doing that. So yes, that's a very quick introduction. I'm just seeing questions. I see Kim is saying, I found a more conclusive search on ChatGPT in specific industry that I couldn't find on Google. Reference myself with industry leaders. So yes, I think that is the wonder of ChatGPT, is it really saves you going through reams and reams of information, going to different websites. ChatGPT can consolidate it into a really succinct manner. Another really wonderful thing that we're going to look at just now is, for example, you can use these very complex thoughts and ideas and ask it to summarize it as if you need to explain it to a 10-year-old or a 7-year-old, and it'll really sort of simplify a lot of the information. Even my wife is a teacher, and she couldn't solve a word problem using maths. So I asked it to do it, and it did it using algebra, very sophisticated. And she said the problem is it's for 10-year-olds, they don't know algebra. So I said to Chat GPT, can you explain it without using algebra? And it did. It managed to do that. So that's definitely a really more sophisticated and advanced way of using it. So thank you, Kim, for that comment. So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, Chat GPT is not a search engine. You need to use prompts, not keywords, and we'll explain in a few minutes what prompts are. If you're not getting the results that you want, also you need to modify your request and explain what you're looking for the system. As I said a little bit earlier, the computer can only do what you ask it to, what you tell it to, not what you want it to. So sometimes what you want it to do, if you don't explain it properly, it's not going to understand you. And that's why sometimes you need to engage in a conversation with the system. You can point out to it and say, that's not what I'm looking for. I want you to do it this way. You can even ask it, for example, to put information in a table. You can say, I want a table of the different provinces in South Africa and which political party is running it at the moment, and it can do it for you. And sometimes it won't do it immediately. It'll give it to you sort of in a big word dump, and you can say, can you neaten it up, put it in a table for me? So feel free to interact and build a relationship with the Chat GPT. I personally say please and thank you a lot. Some people say you don't need to, but for me, I almost want to treat it like a coworker. That is why Microsoft's solution is called Copilot. So it's not autopilot, as Elon Musk is implying that AI is going to run the world for us, but we call it Copilot, where basically you're going to be working with the technology to help you do your job better. So as we were talking about different languages and different cultures, I use Copilot to help me be more careful in the way I phrase my email. So as a South African, I tend to be very direct with my colleagues in other countries, and Copilot can actually correct me and warn me and say, George, rather start saying this, ask the person how they're doing or hope that you're well, and that type of thing. So it really does help me a lot. And I am learning, I am trying to improve, and it's thanks to Copilot that I am doing that as well. So let's jump into a live demo. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, so don't get a fright if you see my presentation disappear. Just tell me if you can see my screen. So you should see Chat GPT. So all that you need to do is to go to chatgpt.com to create your own account. You can see all of the history of previous prompts that you've got will be over here as well. And then, as I mentioned earlier, every time you start a new conversation, you just click on New Chat. Also, what you'll see is that the system will give you prompts already. So it does give you some prompts that you can do. Also, the system, this is quite new, it is possible for you to attach things. So you can attach documents, you can attach pictures, you can attach images and that type of thing as well. So let's start up and let's say that I am a journalist. I have been made redundant due to AI. What new jobs can you recommend for me? So this is very real. So I know a lot of people, journalists specifically, I know that they've been hit very hard by AI. The creative arts have also been hit quite hard by it. So let's pretend and say that I'm a journalist. I've been made redundant due to AI. What jobs can you recommend for me? I have a degree in, now this is not me, I'm just sort of pretending. So let's say I have a degree in English literature. Also something that's very interesting, because the system is so advanced and sophisticated, if you make spelling mistakes, the system still understands what you're trying to say, believe it or not. It kind of autocorrects. So in a lot of sort of Word documents, you will see the autocorrect feature, but in a lot of the search engines, they will not replicate or change or improve your spelling, but the system is clever enough to understand it. So let's spell literature, degree in English literature, and experience with sports. So you see it's busy writing the content for me, and you can see that it's doing it really quickly as well. So I'm just going to wait for it to finish generating, and then we'll go up to the top and see what it's writing. Okay, great. So it's done that for me. So the first thing it does, it actually says, I'm sorry to hear about your job situation. So you'll find it's been built to be very polite. And then it says, with your background in English literature and experience in sports, you have a versatile skill set that can be valuable in various fields. So you can see it's almost trying to motivate me and encourage me, which is quite interesting. Here are some job ideas that might suit you: content creation and management, digital marketing, public relations, editing and publishing, education and training. And it's actually giving me specific jobs over here. So athlete manager. So let's say, can you tell me more about, let's choose one of them over here, screenwriter. Writers. And the nice thing is it can sort of explain to you what the roles and responsibilities are of a screenwriter. Also, in terms of, for example, your CV, you can upload your CV into Chat GPT and ask it to improve your CV. Also, what you can do, something I recommend if you do want to improve the content in your CV, is look on LinkedIn, for example. Look at people in similar roles to you and see what they say they do on LinkedIn. Also, jobs that are being advertised for similar roles to what you're in, they can sometimes really describe what you're doing better than what you can think. So take that content, put it into a Word document, upload it into Chat GPT, and ask it to summarize the information into a succinct CV or resume or portfolio, and it'll do it for you. So you can see while I've been writing, look at all of this content it's given just about a screenwriter in terms of roles and responsibilities, the skills that are required, what you'd need to do. So almost the onboarding process of becoming a screenwriter, the type of education and background, career industry and resources. So you can see it's gone into a lot of detail over here. Let's say if I want to become a sports presenter, tell me more about sports presenting, please. And you can see how quickly it responds. And here, once again, it's going to tell you about the roles and responsibilities of that as well. You can see it is very word heavy. So if you want to, you can literally ask it and say, so it's even giving notable presenters as well, which is, and this is the wonder with Chat GPTs. Every time you use it, they're adding new features to it as well. I've never seen it giving sort of examples of notable presenters in the past. So that's very interesting. So I'm going to ask it, can you create a table comparing the roles of screenwriter, sports commentator, and sports coach. Now, I'm not going to tell it which columns to create. I'm going to see if it is intelligent enough to create a table with meaningful sort of columns and rows for me as well. So you can see there you do. It's given the aspect, and it's actually done it differently to the way I would have done it. I would have thought it would do it the other way around, but you can see that the columns and the rows, so the rows are actually what it's done, and the columns is given by the different jobs. I mean, isn't that amazing? And then you can add more. So you can say, add a journalist to the table. And I don't know, I mean, did you know that you could do this? I know for a lot of people, they didn't realize that it was this simple and easy to do. So you can see it's added a journalist now as well. And if you want to add additional rows of information, for example, what qualifications you'd need or that type of thing, does it have it got an educational part? So we can maybe say add a row about ideal qualifications or academic subjects to complete for the role. So now it's going to give the entire table again, but probably at the end, it normally adds it right at the end, it's going to put that in. So Kasani is asking if it's possible to upload a table with figures, numbers, and ask Chat GPT to do the analysis. So I know in Excel, Copilot does allow you to do that in Excel at the moment, but to be honest with you, Kasani, it's very, very limited and basic. I'm sort of a really strong Power BI and Excel user, and I'm not too impressed with it at the moment. But try it out. And remember, you need to try it out in different ways. So if it doesn't work the first few ways, just try and replicate and consolidate the information better and see what it does. So you can see, let's just have a look and see what it's added. So I think it was just this career path over here. So this is what is added here in terms of what you can do from an education perspective. So let's now use the example I mentioned earlier. And remember, I'm staying in this chat. So all of this chat that I've had is related to my initial conversation. So if I want to start a new chat, I would just literally click on this button over here. Also, while I'm here, just see over here that you can see we're currently using Chat GPT, and then you can upgrade to Chat GPT Plus, or you can start a temporary chat. So that's a fairly new feature as well. So let's just go down to the bottom, and I can say, help me explain what a journalist does. And you see I've made a mistake twice now. Let's just change that one. I don't want to say does. Help me explain what a journalist does to my son who is 10 years old. So my son isn't 10 years old, he's 13, but let's pretend he's 10 years old. Now, it can be a little bit sort of casual, and it's not always professional that way, so I wouldn't say to my son, hey, buddy, but it gives you an indication of how it can sort of simplify a lot of the content. So this is very wordy. I'm going to say, can you summarize in one paragraph, please? And now it'll take that content and summarize it into one paragraph. Look at that. So you don't always have to use all of the content. It can simplify it as well. Okay, let's start with a new chat. And from a creativity perspective, and we're going to cover more of what I covered earlier in the next session. And then the session 3 is going to be using creativity. So let's say, help me create a short story about a young boy who falls in love with a ghost. Let's start looking at character development. So I'm not asking it to write the story immediately. I'm literally saying, let's start looking at character development. So let's see what it does. Look at that. So the young boy could be around 12 to 14, tender age of innocence. The ghost could be around the same age. And it's interesting that it automatically makes it a female. Soul is trapped in a place, an object that holds sentimental value to her. Amazing. Include the boy's family, antagonist or obstacle. So let's say, what storyline would you recommend to make it interesting and compelling for readers? So now it's going to tell you ideally how you should structure the story. So it's going to tell you discovery, which obviously gives you a little bit of introduction. And look at that. It's actually given him a name. It's calling him Alex. Has it given the ghost a name? See Emily? There's Emily. So he's given the ghost the name of Emily. So without me even asking, it's already started to build this. And it looks quite compelling. And this is the key thing, and this is where a lot of the fear around AI is misunderstood, because it requires some level of creativity and ingenuity from the human to drive the way the system builds the story as well. So let's ask it now, please write this story using 1,000 words, because obviously we need to limit it. So now it's going to build based on what I said earlier. It's now going to basically write the story for me. And it's not always perfect. Even though you say use 1,000 words, it sometimes will sort of be a lot larger or a lot smaller. But obviously they are working on refining it all the time. And there we go. In a matter of minutes, we've created a short story. Isn't that amazing? Then you can say to it, can you make it a South African love story, please? So let's see. Look at that in the Karoo. Naledi and Thabo. Isn't that amazing? Okay. And then finally, we're going to come up with a complex word problem. So let's say I am a teacher, and it's always good to give Chat GPT context. So even though I'm not a teacher, I'm sort of pretending that I am a teacher so that it knows how to respond to the question that I'm asking. I am teaching 12-year-old children about word problems. Can you please create a fairly simple word problem for me to introduce the topic to them? Ideally, can I have the problem first and then the solution? Enter. Now, think as a teacher, if you had to sit down and create this yourself, how long it would have taken. Or you would have sort of gone onto Google and tried to search and go through reams and reams and reams of information to try and find it. And here it is. Lily has 3 baskets of apples. Each basket contains 5 apples. She gives 2 apples to her friend Tom. How many apples does Lily have? So it's the solution, and it's not using algebra. So let's say, how could you use algebra to solve this problem? And look at that. Isn't that amazing? And can we use fruit instead of apples? I'm not crazy about apples. So now it's changed that instead of using apples, it's used fruit, and it's still using algebra as well. And then, of course, you can change the name from Lily to something else, but you could do that in Word or whatever you want to as well. So that is the introduction to, and I know we're going to run out of time. What I'd like to do now is very quickly just show in Teams. I've been talking a lot, so there's going to be lots of information. I'm just going to go directly into Teams, and hopefully you can see Teams. So you can see I've opened up Copilot. You won't have this, unfortunately, unless you work for Microsoft, but I've got a Copilot button in Teams that I can click on, and you'll see that sometimes it does give you automatic prompts. So I'm going to say recap the meeting so far. And this is just going to be shown to me, so it won't be shown to everybody else. It's just because I'm sharing the screen. It is going to be looking at that. And here it's talking about the key topics, AI education and usage. generative AI for business. So obviously I've been talking most of the time, so it's not going to, well, I've been talking all the time, not most of the time. And there it has given very interesting information about this. There are more prompts as well, suggest follow-up questions. So you can see the system is listening, and it's not just a sort of data dump of the words that I'm saying, and it even understands my South African accent as well, but it's being intelligent about it as well. So yeah, it's going to come up with some questions that I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer all of them. What specific concerns have been raised by the creative community regarding AI? How does the chamber, so it's intelligent, it knows that I'm talking to the South African Chamber of Commerce. How does the chamber plan to address these concerns and support artists? What measures are being implemented to ensure the ethical use of AI within the company? How does the company plan to combat the spread of misinformation through AI technologies? So you can see it's picked up very subtle little things. And what we did a few weeks ago, we had a meeting as Microsoft with a partner that is responsible for doing a lot of work for us. So we provide the technology, the partner will implement it and do the change management and that type of thing. And as with any negotiation and conversation, there's certain topics that we kind of avoid talking about. So the AI engine is very unsympathetic about that. So I asked in the chat, I said, what are areas that are potentially causing disputes or disagreements, or that we are trying to avoid talking about? And Copilot came up with very clear areas that we'd kind of been avoiding discussing or not found agreement on. I pasted it in the chat and I said, it's very interesting, this is what Copilot is saying. And we were all sort of really surprised and amazed at how clearly it was able to guide the conversation and address certain issues and topics that we'd kind of been avoiding and skirting around. So that's very quickly how you can use Copilot Live in Teams to do that type of thing. So I'm going to stop sharing now. And if anybody would like to come off mute and ask me any questions, I'm going to go back to the chat and just see if any more questions have come through. Can I upload a CV and ask for a summary? Yes, Liz, so you can. I don't know if you can do that live in Chat GPT and actually attach documents. I think in the premium version you can. I know in Copilot we can do that as well. So what I did is I uploaded a job description. I uploaded 2 applicants that I created using Chat GPT, and I said, can you recommend who the best person is for the job? And Chat GPT did choose the front runner. Then what I asked it to do is to write a regret letter to the person who was unsuccessful with the application. And ChatGPT wrote a really beautiful, poignant letter for that person with a letter of regret saying, we're really sorry you didn't get it. This is the reason why you didn't have experience with this and that. If you want to improve your knowledge or experience with that, this is potentially what you could study, and these are the types of jobs you could apply for to get the experience to be able to do this job at a later date. Amazing. I reached out to our Microsoft HR team and said, isn't this amazing? Isn't this something that we could do? And they said, yes, we're working on it. So I think the challenge with the company that we work for is we get thousands of applications for every job. So that kind of comes with an arrogance. I, as an HR professional, would love to be able to use AI to do something like that. I think often applicants for jobs are not recognized and not really given. I know most times you don't even get a regret letter. You don't even hear back from the recruiting company. But in an ideal world, that is how I'd like to use AI for good. Sharon, I see you've come off mute.
Thank you. The part that I found really like it walked into a glass wall for a moment, and that is we are creating relationships and emotional ties and engagement with a nothing, with a brain out there that I can't see, I can't touch, but I'm getting all the emotions as though that person was right here. And I think that's probably my greatest takeaway from this session is the ethics, the politeness, the treating them in a humane manner. And the other part is I work with boards of directors. And one of the things we often say to boards is bring in one of those people that's on the difficult spectrum, yes, because they don't have the consciousness to actually be polite sometimes when they should. And yet the other side of it is they are brilliant at bringing to the table the stuff nobody else is prepared to do. And you talked about our Chat GPT friend, who I'm going to have to give a name somehow. I've got to find a name. I've named my car, so I'm going to have to name my Chat GPT as well. Have a male version and a female version on different browsers so I can see what goes on. And that I think is going to be an interesting one. But we do say to boards it is important to have somebody who is prepared to have that more direct consciousness than being too English polite and not being as direct as we would like them to be. So thank you. That was my takeaway.
Right.
I don't know if anybody else wants to ask you a question. I don't want to hug the room because you've got 3 minutes left. Any other questions for George? Anybody wants to? You could drop it in the chat, which I can see you are very busy at answering.
So Sharon, I asked Chat GPT to come up with a few names for itself, but I think they're all terrible.
All right, I won't try that. I'll find another one.
Better names than that. Please. Wisdom was Chat Genie. Oh no, they're all terrible.
I don't like them. No, you're right.
No.
We'll have to do business. Have to find another way.
Yeah.
That the word wisdom was okay, but not whiz. So my best friend Wisdom.
Best friend Wisdom, yeah, fantastic. And then the amazing thing is that you could even sort of can you switch to Zulu? I'm not even going to try and pronounce those, but look at that. Isn't it amazing? So it's quite phenomenal what we can do. And I think it's not going to take away. It's actually, I was mentioning to Sharon a little bit earlier, I look after Spain, and it's really wonderful because the Spanish people can write to me in Spanish. I use Translate in Outlook, and I can respond to them in Spanish as well. So it's really respecting culture. So instead of expecting everybody to know English and be able to communicate in English, eventually we're going to have live translation using AI. So I'll be able to speak to you in English, and you can then, instead of having subtitles in Zulu or Xhosa or whatever, you will hear me speaking in your home language if you want to. So it'll be able to do it in real time. That is why people are building these massive data centers, because we're going to need huge processing power to be able to do these types of things in real time. Also generating videos. I mean, already we're generating text. As you can see, it's taking a little bit of time to generate the text. So you can imagine when it comes to generating video content, the processing power that you're going to need. You're not going to do it on your home PC, believe me. It's going to be done in the cloud because it's going to need so much processing power. So thank you, everybody. I see people are saying thanks in the chat as well. Sharon, it's really been a pleasure, and I'm going to stop recording now. Stuart, thank you for all the organizing in the background, and Sharon, for your kind words as well. Thanks so much.
Thank you, and look forward to the next session. Really looking forward to it.
So thank you, everybody. Really lovely meeting you. Have a great day. Happy Friday, and have a good weekend. It's a long weekend in the UK, so we
call it a bank holiday weekend. Everybody, yes. Best wishes. Get some sleep, get some rest, do some of the things you'd rather be doing than being at work on Monday, and enjoy being social with everybody else.
Thanks a lot, Sharon.
Cheers, everybody. Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers, Stuart. Bye.